Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into the incredible story of Cannabidiol, or CBD. We're going to look at how it went from this controversial plant extract to a landmark FDA-approved medicine for some of the most severe forms of epilepsy. It's a journey that's all about science for sure, but it actually started with families who are just desperate for an answer.
So let me start by asking you a question. Imagine you're a doctor, and for a full third of your patients, none of the standard proven medications work at all. What do? I mean, this isn't some hypothetical. For decades, this has been the tough reality for a huge portion of people living with epilepsy. And that's the number. Between 30 and 40% of all epilepsy patients have what's called drug-resistant epilepsy. And what that means is they live with active, uncontrolled seizures because the standard treatments just don't work for them. For these families, the search for a solution is quite literally a matter of life and death.
So let's really get a sense of the scale of this problem. Epilepsy is way more common than most people think, and for a huge number of patients, it's a challenge that medicine has really struggled to solve. Globally, we're talking about 50 million people. That makes epilepsy one of the most common neurological disorders on the entire planet. And for almost half of them, the path to being seizure-free is just blocked. And then you have the really extreme end of the spectrum, syndromes like Dravet and Lennox Gastaut. These often start in early childhood, and they are just relentless. They cause all different types of seizures, developmental delays, and they're notoriously resistant to pretty much every available medication. So, with the standard medical toolbox failing so many people, hope started to pop up from a very, very unexpected place. It didn't come from a big pharmaceutical lab. It came from the powerful stories of patients and their families. And that is the story of CBD.
Okay, so what exactly are we talking about here? Cannabidiol, or CBD, is a compound from the cannabis plant. But, and this is absolutely critical, unlike THC, it has no psychoactive effects. It doesn't get you high. It was this specific compound that started to generate all the buzz.
This timeline just shows what a remarkable path this was. You had these little studies back in the 70s that kind of hinted at something, but they went nowhere. Then, decades later, a video goes viral. It's a child with Dravet Syndrome whose seizures were dramatically reduced by CBD oil. And that changed everything. It created this huge groundswell of public interest that basically forced the medical community to take a serious look. And that led to formal studies and finally FDA approval in 2018.
And this quote from Dr. Eric Marsh, who's one of the pioneering researchers here, just captures it perfectly. This wasn't some top-down discovery from a lab. No, this was a bottom-up revolution. It was driven by patients and families who demanded that science validate their experiences. It's a completely unique story in modern medicine.
But look, compelling stories are one thing. Medicine requires hard data. Researchers had to put CBD through rigorous, placebo-controlled trials to see if those incredible anecdotes actually held up. And here it is, the proof. This shows the results from a huge trial for patients with Lennox Gastaut Syndrome. The group taking CBD saw their seizures drop by almost 44%. The placebo group, about 22%. It was literally twice as effective. This was the moment the science became completely undeniable. Okay, so one study is really powerful, but what happens when you combine all of the high-quality research together? To get the most definitive answer possible, scientists turn to the highest level of evidence we have. And that's something called an umbrella review. It's basically a review of reviews. It gathers up all the existing work to give one comprehensive, super powerful conclusion. So, what did the umbrella review on CBD for epilepsy find? Well, the first major finding was this. Patients taking CBD were 73% more likely to have their seizure frequency cut in half or even more, compared to those taking a placebo. That is just a massive improvement for people who had already tried everything else and had it fail. But this number, wow. This one is maybe the most profound. For nearly 11 out of every 100 patients taking CBD meant becoming completely seizure-free. For these folks and their families, that outcome isn't just an improvement, it's a complete transformation of their entire lives. All right, so we've seen the clear, powerful benefits, but just like with any effective medicine, there is another side to the story. It's so important to balance those amazing positive effects with the potential risks and side effects. This table really lays it all out. On the one side, you've got these huge seizure reductions, the life-changing chance to become seizure-free. But on the other side, you see a more than 2 times increased risk of things like diarrhea and drowsiness. And the most serious concern here is the risk of elevated liver enzymes. That was over 12 times higher.
This just drives home that this is a powerful medication that absolutely requires a doctor's supervision.
But here's a really fascinating little detail. Dr. Marsh points out that some side effects, like diarrhea, might not even be from the CBD at all. See, the purified drug, Epidiolex, is delivered in sesame oil, and taking high doses of that oil every single day could actually be the real culprit behind some of those stomach issues. Pretty interesting, right?
So after this incredible journey, from patient stories to gold standard scientific evidence, where does CBD really fit in today? It's important we frame its role in the right way.
So what are the big takeaways here? First, CBD is a proven valuable tool for doctors, especially for those kids with severe drug-resistant syndromes. But it's not some miracle cure for everyone. It is a real prescription medicine with serious risks that have to be managed by a doctor. And finally, and maybe most importantly, we can't forget that this breakthrough only exists because families refused to give up, and they pushed science to catch up with what they were already experiencing.
So, where does that leave us? We've established CBD as a legitimate therapy for epilepsy. But that leaves us with a really provocative question. Is this the end of the story, or is it just the very first chapter in understanding how the many other compounds in the cannabis plant could be harnessed for modern medicine?